On today's episode, we are back with another installment of our Young, Gifted, and Black-ademic topic. So, if you haven't been keeping track, we've had three other episodes that have to do with being young, gifted, and Black in the academy. So, this episode is about mentorship and why it matters. So, as I said before, this is a series. So, you can expect about 10 of these, and we have shirts to come as well about this. So, one thing that we do want to give is a disclaimer that these pieces of information, this advice that we give, it's based on our own experiences as PhD students, as faculty who are Black, young women engineering at flagship universities. So that's our context there. So your mileage may vary. So just keep that in mind. You ready, Jeremy?
I'm ready. I'm ready because this episode is about mentorship.
Yes, and that is your jam.
And that's where my heart is, y'all. Like, I don't know. I know how I got here, but it's just been a fun journey to like kind of get to this place where like I'm doing research and work in a space that like actually matters to me.
Yeah.
And it should matter to all of us because there's so much that effective mentorship can do to help propel you into the career that you want.
Yeah. 100% agree. Like, I think it's funny how, when you have a faculty member who is your advisor or mentor, this is the only job that you can have without ever having any experience or get any sort of, training explicitly on how to be a mentor. Like, usually someone's just kind of coming along and they're like, hey, I think you should be my mentor. It's like, what does that mean? So I think it's really cool to explicitly focus on mentorship and not letting it just be like a byproduct of something else.
100% agree. So we'll jump into that by talking about like kind of how I got here in some ways, right?
Yeah.
So a long time ago. Just kidding.
Once upon a time in a world far,
Once
far
upon a time.
away.
Actually, it was this world right here.
I mean, it's like 6 miles from you right now, so that's kind of
That's true.
far
That's
if you're
true.
walking.
That's
Just
true.
saying.
So we kind of have jumped into like my difficult slash traumatic PhD experience and like what that was like for me, and how I met Juan Gilbert in the process and how he kind of helped me navigate the end of my PhD program and then gave me an opportunity to be a postdoctoral scholar in his lab. And you know, I think as a postdoctoral researcher, you're given a lot of responsibility, but you're also given a lot of opportunity. And in my case, because Juan is slash was a department chair, I got to learn about even more. And so he kind of like opened the door for me to see all of the types of opportunities that come to someone who's well known in their field. And one of the opportunities that he was given, I used a strategy of mentoring to eventually get myself in the room with the people who do research. So I do research on mentoring specifically. So Juan got an email. He was really excited. He likes to tell me when he gets exciting emails.
This is true.
I think Kyla too.
Yes.
And also Shawnee. Shout out to
Yes.
Shawnee Daly, who is at Duke now. So I was like in his office in one of our meetings, and he's like, I got this really cool email. I've been invited to like be a part of this National Academy's commissioned report, and we're gonna go to the National Academies in Irvine, California, and it's gonna be a workshop, and this person's coming, and that person's coming, and I'm just like, I wanna go.
Right.
And he's like, you can't go. I was like, why can't I go? And he's like, well, you didn't get invited. And I was like, you're Juan Gilbert.
Make something happen.
Send an email.
Right.
Send an email and see if I can come. He's like, I can't do that. And I'm like, again, you're Juan Gilbert. Just send the email. So he actually does it. Like, he's like, what should it say? I literally dictate to him what the email should say. And he hit send right in front of me. And I was like, great.
Right. So now I'm
And
going.
he's like, so don't expect anything. And like literally, like a day later, they were like, of course she can come. And not only that, like we want her to speak. So I
See?
was like,
Do Jesus. See?
whoa. So anyways, that strategy is called mentoring up, and we can talk about that later. But I was invited to speak on a panel at the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine's one of their meetings on a study on the science of effective mentorship in STEM with an extra M for medicine. And so um, it was really, really remarkable. I mean, I didn't really know what I was inviting myself to. I just knew that it sounded cool, right? And basically, the National Academies, they work with um, people who are really well known for the research that they're conducting in those disciplines. And so in this case, you know, these were researchers from engineering, computer science, psychology, even medicine, who focused a lot of their work on mentorship. And they were convened for this particular meeting to discuss some of the commissioned papers that they asked individuals to do related to mentorship in the STEM disciplines. And so I got to hear talks from some amazing researchers. So Ebony McGee, Brian Burt, Stephanie Page, Rhonda Montgomery, and Joy
This is
Mundisa,
like the
all of
dream
them.
team.
Yeah, these are all people who in the STEM education space are like renowned and or up and coming in that space. And not to mention like the people on the committee. So like, you know, I already knew Renetta Garrison Till, but
Hey.
yeah, and she's like over in California now, which is kind of weird. But at the time she wasn't. She was still, I believe, at
UMBC.
UMBC.
Yep.
Yeah. Um, but Angela Byers Winston, who does a lot of work in like medicine, Chris Fund, who is like one of my favorite people on earth,
Aw.
and is over the Center for the Improvement of Mentored Experiences in Research, and some other people that like I mean I met them at this event. Aaron Dolan, Laura Lunsford. So
So you met the
and then
whole
the
dream
person
team
I met everybody. I met
just because you asked
everybody who
someone
was
to send an
doing
email to say, look,
look.
can I come?
So, I mean, some of these people, like, I hit it off really well with, and, you know, they followed up, they checked in with me, they've been tracking my trajectory, wants some pictures of Amara, like,
Aw.
that level of, like, we want to support her in her career. Um, and it all kind of points back to the fact that, like, mentorship isn't just their research, it's about who they are, right? Like, so they're not only, um, you know, researching this stuff, like this is, they practice what they preach, right? They put their practices in practice.
Right.
And so one of the things that came out of their work together was this really long report that incorporated some of the findings from the studies that were presented at that meeting that I
And
attended.
we'll link to it in
And
the show notes. If you go on our
yeah,
website, we'll have a link to the report.
so there's the report, there's an online guide. So at some point I was invited to contribute to the committee more meaningfully because I kept attending things. They had other workshops and things. And so I became an unofficial member. But I actually was invited to be a consultant on the project for their website implementation. So that meant like we talked about like what features would be helpful and devised the idea to make like this online guide that synthesized like the highlights of the information. They actually created a podcast, which I thought was really
Oh,
cool that they
neat.
decided to do that. And so you can hear some snippets of some people across the country who are doing work in mentorship as well. So that brings us to our conversation for today, which is, you know, what is mentorship? What does it mean to have a
I
mentor?
was
What does
supposed to
that
ask
look
you
like?
that.
And yeah, I know. But I was already talking and I feel like I could talk about this for days. I was telling Rod like I'm really excited that we're talking about this because I mean I think for me, yeah, I was the project manager of the Institute for African American Mentoring
Right.
in Computing Sciences. But I never made the connection
That's so
that
funny.
mentorship was scholarship until I
Mm,
attended this event, and
that's
that it could be
important.
something I studied.
Yeah, and that's super
Hmm.
important. Like, I know we're going to get into the topic of, what is mentorship, but like, or what is a mentor, but I think it's also important to talk about why the scholarship around mentorship is important. Like, why can't it just be something that just, happens? People have been being mentors for years. Why do we need to study it?
No, 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 and that's like a narrative that we have to completely like disrupt,
Yeah,
right? Because, like you said, oh, I'm just thrust into this relationship with someone. Does that make me their mentor? No. The idea
not a
of this,
good
like,
one.
girl, the idea that there's this hierarchical structure to mentoring is really problematic and something that can be detrimental to, you know, especially the person who has less experience in the space. Um, it could really affect your self efficacy, your confidence, your sense of belonging, a lot of different aspects of who you are because, I think that I know everything and you know nothing.
Right.
Right? It's a deficit approach to what could be something very different. So, I'm going to go ahead and say this definition
Mm-hmm.
that they came up with. So, it's a professional working alliance in which individuals work together over time to support the personal and professional growth, development, and success of the relational partners through the provision of career and psychosocial support, which is a
That's
lot
a lot
of
of
words.
words.
But, like, let's break it down, right? Like, one, it's a professional alliance, right? So we are coming together in a professional sense. This is not like you're my friend, we're friends, and I'm gonna support you. So, you know, parents are parents. That's pretty much it. And they can definitely like guide you and support you, right? But like in a professional sense, like we're talking about like how do I help you achieve your career goals?
Yeah.
Like for this series, how do I help you achieve your academic goals? Right? Because that's your profession, right? Like you're a
Yeah.
student. And student is a profession, whether you want to believe it or not. Um, Oftentimes you'll see it like in a drop down menu of like, what do you do? Right. So,
It's a full-time job.
um, yeah. And then like, I also like the provision of career and psychosocial support. So it's not just about, what is it that you're studying? What are you working on? It's about you as a whole person. And there's been a lot of discussions of late about like the importance of well-being, like your mental health,
Yeah.
and how critical that is to success. Like you can't bring your whole self to work if aren't fully who you are meant to be because of your mental health or state of your health. So, anyways, um, that's the thing that I think is really important to consider.
Yeah.
And it's time bound. So it's not like this wide open free for all like we're going to be together forever.
Unless you want to,
Uh
but
Unless both of you
yeah.
or all of you want to,
Yeah.
right? Like um it's it's something that should be for the period of time that makes sense for all of the people involved. So
I
yeah,
like
so
it.
that's the definition of mentorship.
I like it.
And yeah, I think the other piece of that is like I'm saying mentorship a lot and not mentoring, and I'm not necessarily saying mentor all the time. And that's because mentorship doesn't create this idea in your mind that like one person holds the knowledge and one person doesn't hold it. So if I say like you're being mentored, right? Like that means somebody is mentoring you, and it's not a unidirectional thing, right?
Yeah.
Like if it's being something that's effective, like everybody benefits. We all benefit from the relationship that we have. So, yeah.
It's good points, good points. So, in graduate school,
Hmm.
what is the role of your mentor?
It depends.
Lovely.
It depends.
It's a
It
trick
depends. It
question. Yes, it's
depends.
a trick question.
I Okay, so whenever I give talks about mentorship, I always say like your advisor isn't necessarily your mentor.
Right.
And that's because sometimes your advisor does not care about your health, like your
Not at
mental, your
all.
psychosocial health, like whether or not you have the support you need. So, is that really true mentorship? I don't think so.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can help me achieve my career goals, but at what cost?
Right. Right. And I feel like also like people think of a mentor as just one person who knows everything
Mm-hmm.
that's good for your life, because like you say, your mentor might be able to lead you through on one specific topic. They can maybe mentor you in the discipline to learn the discipline, but you may have another mentor for work-life balance or have another mentor that can talk about spirituality or mixing them together, or just being in academia in general. So, yeah, so that was kind of a trick question about what's the role of the mentor. Number one, there is no
Yeah.
the mentor, because going back to exactly what you were saying, there is no guru, I know everything and you know nothing kind of thing, and you just are supposed to be a clone of this person. That's just not true.
Yeah, and the other piece of that is like, you know, I in science, we like to have replicates of things to show whether or not it's
Right.
actually functioning properly, right? Like we don't just believe it the first time. We test the waters and see like, okay, can I reprove this in a different way, or like is this method going to work? Is it foolproof? I think the same thing is true when you're seeking advice of people, right? Like everybody's experience is different. Like we even talk about in the beginning of this, like your mileage may vary because the circumstances that you're in may be different. And so um, I am someone who makes decisions by committee. I get
Yes.
feedback from different people and then I make my decision. And it might be what the first person told me. But until I have enough evidence to support that decision, I'm not going to move unless I just am really confident in the decision, right?
Yeah, some people call it a board of directors or
Yeah.
wise counsel, because there's
Yeah.
multiple people and we're all vastly different people. So you might give me advice based on your context and what you think, but,
Mm-hmm.
it may or may not apply to my situation.
Right. So I definitely feel like having multiple people around you makes a lot of sense. And there are mentorship models, right, that look at different structures of mentoring and how that functions. So Miranda Montgomery and Stephanie Page actually wrote a paper on that, and it's really really insightful because it talks about like moving away from the dyad of like mentor mentee only in a relationship. There could be different structures based on what you need and what you're experiencing that would be most beneficial. And so like in the research side of it, it could be that, you're someone who has strong social capital, like you're connected and well connected to people who are privileged and can, help you navigate certain structures better because of that privilege and because of who they know,
It's
right?
true.
So um, it really just kind of depends on what you need the mentorship for, right?
So you need a mentor with some juice, is what I'm hearing.
I think you need multiple mentors for different
Yeah.
things.
Well, I guess whoever you enter, in a number of mentorship relationships with, they need to have some power, something.
I definitely think it's beneficial to have some people in your board
Yeah.
who hold the keys
Yeah.
to the castle.
No, that's really true because I would have never understood what it takes to be a faculty member. Like just from being around Juan and him being so open as a chair and just sharing all the stuff that happens, and then him just being super transparent, about everything.
Mm-hmm.
Because you might think, oh man, the department chair made a crazy rule for all of us. And it's like, well, actually, the board of governors said this, and then the provost enacted this and told the
Right.
dean to do this. So this is the way that we're meeting that rule. And it's like, oh, I see it that way versus someone who may not have any power or leverage, or because it just boggles me sometimes how some faculty don't know how the university works, and like we'll be in meetings and they'll
Yeah.
propose things. I'm like, do you not know that's not how this works?
I think the same is true in as an undergraduate student,
Oh,
as a grad student.
definitely.
Like as an undergraduate student, you may not even know beyond who like is your instructor in your classroom. You may not even know anything, or anyone
That
else,
was,
right?
yeah,
Like, and that's not unheard of or unreasonable, right? To be in that circumstance, like you're just here to take some classes and be done,
yeah,
right? But I think as soon as you start thinking about like pursuing research, now this whole other world opens up to you where you start to realize like, oh, there's departments, and the departments are part of a college,
right,
and that college is part of, if you're at a university, that college is connected to multiple entities, these different academic units on my campus, and um, it's it's really really interesting to learn about, and it's hard to do that if you're connected to someone who doesn't have that insight.
yeah. I agree. So it kind of segues into the next question. So we've already talked about that attribute. Like, how do you find the right mentor? Like, how do you know when the relationship? And we were saying that there's n number of mentors that we can have for various aspects of our lives. But how do you know that someone is the right person to enter a mentorship relationship with?
I think you realize it pretty quickly if it isn't, right?
Yeah,
so,
that part.
so um you know I think about role models, like people, like aspirational mentors, and people that I see that I think I want to be,
Yeah.
right? And those are the people that I've sought out for mentorship, where it's like I see what you're doing, I like what you're doing, I want to know more.
Right. How
Can
did
you
we
like
get
kind
here?
of, right, can you pull back that curtain like in the Wizard of Oz and tell us what's going on back
Right.
there? And explain like in detail like how you got here, what steps I should take if I want to get there. So I think about role models first.
Hmm.
So, and then it's just like, maintaining effective communication. It's, does this person have the same shared values as I have? Um, are we, is there a specific goal that I have in mind? So like if I want to be a dean, can you help me get there?
Or are you someone who thinks administration is the enemy? So,
Terrible.
right, that would not be the
Yeah,
right
that's
mentor for
not
someone.
gonna be right. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah. Or like if I'm a grad student, it might be a senior grad student. I'm just starting out as a grad student, and I see that grad student is like almost out the door,
Right.
but they're doing work that I like really admire, and I've seen them give talks, and I'm like, wow, they're so polished. How can I get like that? What did they do? Um, I would align myself with that person
Yeah.
and see if what they did really fits what I'm willing to do or interested in doing. Because sometimes it's just not a match.
Yeah. I really like the point about the shared values because I feel like that's the part that really helps with the decision making sorts of things because they can mentor you through any sort of situation, but if you have a completely different value structure or setup than I do,
Yeah.
then I'm ultimately not going to be on the same page as you with whatever it is that you say. So it's definitely, that is super, super important. Like, I just always think of, okay, do I want to be like this person in this aspect of their
Right.
life? And like for me, I like people who have really good work life balance, but are still extremely just prolific in their writing and they're excellent scholars and
Mm-hmm.
highly regarded, but also don't look like work is driving them crazy. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely can see how, um, for me, like that is probably the baseline. Like we're going to start there. Like,
right,
do we believe the same things? And then from there, it's like, okay, can you assist me in some way in achieving a goal that I have?
right.
And it's usually not like from the relationships that I have, they've all been kind of organic. So what my one of my closest people in my life, Dr. Angela
Oh,
Lindner,
yeah.
became one of my mentors because she took over the position that my mentor had
Hmm.
at the university. So she immediately followed him in that role. And because I like lived there in that office, we just talked a lot about like my experience as an undergraduate student in engineering and got to know each other really well. We talked about everything, our faith, food, exercise,
Just everything.
student organizations, classwork, my experience, as a black female student in our program, research opportunities, like what I saw myself doing long term. And she's really like she helped me navigate graduate school because she became an external member on my committee. And everyone knew that I knew her, but they didn't know like how well I knew her. So she was kind of like this secret spy on my committee to help,
That's great, though.
communicate with me. You're supposed to have this person.
Yeah.
So if you don't have this person, find them. But identify somebody who can like report back.
Yes.
Like, this is what you really should be focused on.
Right.
And here's how I can help you do that. So, like, you know, I definitely am grateful for her support through that process. But it all started with like, oh, so you like the stuff that I like,
Aw.
and you're passionate about the things that I'm passionate about, minus the exercise piece, because not really
Nobody
passionate
really
about it.
likes exercise. They're just pretending.
She definitely does. She definitely does.
I think she's brainwashed herself. I don't know. No, I'm
Oh my
joking.
goodness.
But
Yeah.
I really like the fact that, those organic sorts of relationships can happen. But also, there's times when you just see someone out in the wild and it's like, hey, I
Yeah.
want to be like you. So I know I have some strategies. So, what are your strategies for like getting that person to perhaps like be your mentor without walking up to them and being like, hello, can you please sign my mentorship contract? And we're going to talk once a month, and, without making it super weird.
I'll just say this, like, first of all, we're
Yeah,
extroverts.
we are.
So this is a space that like is really, really, really easy for us. And I think that it's important to acknowledge that most people who are in the STEM disciplines are not extroverted. It's just what it is. And so whenever I get asked this question about like either my network or like the people who are my mentors, like how did they become your mentors? I don't really have a good answer because there's just I talk to people.
Yeah,
Like, and that's not really a good answer. It's just
it's what
reality,
happens.
right?
Yeah.
um but I have helped other people who aren't extroverted identify people who they could be mentored by and use my extrovertism
To make the
to support
connection.
yeah, to
Yeah.
support them in that journey.
Yeah, there's a
But I'd love to hear your strategies.
so I'll start first with the what I learned from an introvert. So I mentor a student who is a self-proclaimed introvert, and one of the things that she did is in her individual, research domain, she volunteered on a committee that allowed students. So she does the newsletter. So it's a way that she could just do that, but also still have the FaceTime and have this regular meeting
Mm-hmm.
time with people who are very prominent in the field, who are over the specific society. So then when she wants to say, hey, I'm on the job market, what's available, or can you read my application or my essay? It's not such a huge ask because this is someone that you've had the face time and the quality time with. So I would definitely suggest introverts, maybe there's a small service role that you can put yourself into, so that if you're not the loudest person at the conference, or if you're not giving a presentation, you could definitely have this already made, regular meeting time with folks in your field. So that was something I was like, oh wow, you really did that. And especially during COVID, because we were talking about like
Yeah.
networking and COVID and how it's really hard in general to meet people. Add the extroversion, that's another layer, and then add the I can't be outside. It's another layer. So I was like, oh, that's really cool. But for me, I don't use the word mentor. Like, I'll just be like, hey, what are you doing today? Can I get you some coffee? Oh, by the way, can we talk about blank? So, and I would just do that every month. Like, there's one specific Damon
Oh
Woodard.
my
Like, I did
gosh.
that to Damon. Like, I was like, he's gonna be my mentor, but he doesn't know it. And I'm like, hey, let's get coffee.
Mm-hmm.
We have to catch up. And then it's always, okay, this is what you need to do. You need to do this. Apply for this in 3 years. Do this. So I was like, and all it cost
And
was some coffee.
meanwhile, I had the reverse, right? Like
Hmm.
where I wasn't trying to be mentored
Oh yeah,
and
mentorship was
I
thrust
got
upon you.
harassed. Yes. Yes, it was, by Juan. So, it's just one of those things where it's just sometimes it just happens. Like it's meant to be. Like all of the stars align and like you meet this person and they're amazing and like you're amazing. So
Yeah,
why not?
and
Why
sometimes
not support each other?
mentors can be introverts. So sometimes they might
Yes.
need you to introduce yourself to them. Because, like, Damon's also an introvert. So
Yes.
it's like one of those, if I had never explicitly said, hey, let's go get, coffee, let's have lunch, it would have
Mm-hmm.
never happened. But he has tons, and lots of other people have really good information and tons of it and are really open to telling you how they got where they are and how they do what they do. But if you don't pull it out of them, it'll just stay there.
Yep. Yep. All of that. All of that. So I definitely think that, in terms of finding the right people, it's just you gotta try. You gotta put yourself out there. And sometimes the answer is a no,
And
right?
that's
Like
fine.
if you make an ask and yeah, that's fine. I remember we had this guy, hold on, let me look him up, come to UF as part of like the dean's advisory board meeting and then like a like speaker series that was associated with it, and like he was invited to give a talk and he talked about his book which was called The Medici Effect. So it's Franz Johannesson, and he was like, oh, like I really enjoyed your comments, like let's stay in touch, let's
Nice.
talk, let's stay connected. And we had one really good conversation, but that was it.
Hmm.
So like this is like someone who's like kind of famous that I got connected with, and um it didn't work out. He was super cool though, and I appreciated like his support and his even making the attempt to try to support me. I thought that was really awesome of him. But sometimes it's just not meant, like the season isn't right or whatever.
Sometimes
Like
people are
it's
at
just
capacity.
people, yeah, people are busy. Like we're talking about right now, Kyla and I, like it's the chaotic times.
Chaotic.
We're living we're living in chaos.
Yeah. I
Um,
don't know who said I was on
but
sabbatical because I've clearly not sabbaticaled yet.
fake sabbatical, fake sabbatical.
Child. I need
Um,
another one.
but yeah, so it's one of those things where it's like there's that piece where it's like it may not work out initially, and then there's the piece of like you may have started the process and then realize like this ain't it.
Yeah. I mean, and it's a vibe check. It's like if you don't want to have an actual extended conversation with this person, it's probably not a good mentoring
Right.
relationship.
Yeah, these are not the vibes.
No, we are not
You can
forcing things. No forced
you can bow out
relationships.
gracefully.
No forced
Yeah.
ponytails. No forced nothing.
And I like what you said earlier. So you mentioned mentoring contracts, right?
Mm,
So there's all these different types of documents that you can create that help you like establish what the norms are in your relationship with someone. Like if this is something like especially like in an academic setting, this is a really good strategy where, you know, maybe you do an assumptions hunt
mm,
and you write down what you want in the mentorship relationship. The person or people that you are approaching, they do the same. and you all talk about like, okay, this is what I expect out of this mentorship relationship. This is how often I would like to meet. This is the times that I have available to meet. This is my preferred mode of
Communication.
communication. Yeah, yeah. And like, you can imagine some of those things are gonna conflict potentially, but you can talk it out early and make the decision like, this is what will be the best thing for us to move forward in this way that I can support you, and vice versa.
Yeah, and don't be surprised if you are on the mentee side of that relationship to pick up a lot of the heavy work, because you may have to be the one to chase this person. It does not mean that they don't want to meet with you, but there are a lot of things on this person's plate. So you might have to be the one who's always, figuring out the meeting time and, setting up the Zoom call or doing whatever, facilitating whatever it is. So just don't be surprised. Don't feel like they should be the one reaching out to you, because unfortunately that's not how it works. This person has a lot at stake. And not to say, oh, mentoring you isn't important, but it's not something that they're getting evaluated based on. It's not something that they have to do. So the easier you make it for them, I think the more readily you'll be able to get the advice that you need. Like if you become a mentee that is not reachable, you never reach out, then what are we doing here? So people know they have to track me down. Everybody has my cell phone number, so or they can get my Calendly, and that's how you
I
track me
had to
down.
track Kyla down. I had to track her down today.
Yes,
Okay, so
today.
this is not. It's not to say that like, her time is more valuable than my time, because I don't believe that, and I don't think she believes that. But I think it's important to understand, like, we all have stuff, right? And the easier we can make it on each other, this is why the assumptions hunt stuff is really valuable. Like, you can ensure that you are approaching things the way that, whoever is involved prefers. And I think the other piece of this is like, sometimes you have to just be more accountable to each other, right? Like, it's pretty easy for me to tell someone like, hey, I'm not going to be able to make it today, and just leave it at that. Like, I don't have to tell you why, I don't have to tell you what's going on, but at least I've acknowledged like, I'm not going to make it, and I can choose to use, if I'm the person who you're connecting with, like, they can choose to use that time for something else.
Yeah.
If you never tell me you're not going to be somewhere, that's time that I could have
Right. Erase
used
this
to do
number,
something else.
please.
Right. Don't erase the number,
No.
but just be like,
No, that's what they're saying.
here's what actually went down, right? And then like, be honest and be willing to say I messed up.
Yeah.
So accountability goes a long way in any relationship. So it's not, these are human beings. Even though sometimes we like to treat people as
robots,
just sources of knowledge.
Right.
Yeah.
They're also humans who are humaning. So there is that.
Mm-hmm.
So back to this mentor persons.
Mm-hmm.
How important is it for your mentor to be in your general discipline? Like, let's say you're in engineering or you're in the sciences, or, how important is it for them to be in that space, like in your discipline versus like your larger college slash just another faculty member who understands the university?
I think that really, again, depends on your goal, right? Like, what are you trying to achieve? And so I think with all relationships, that's where you got to start. Like, what do you want? And if you can't answer that question, it's probably unwise to try to seek someone out for support. Because what are you even looking for? Why are you here? Right? So start with, what do you want? And then, like, if like, you are not going to be waking up in the morning to have a phone call at coffee time in the morning to meet with somebody. Coffee o'clock. Don't sign up to work, connect with somebody who's that person. Right. If you are, in an animal lab where you are chopping up bodies for science, and and you're being mentored by someone like me who does qualitative research of narratives, like, it probably will not be beneficial for me to help advise you
'Cause-
on how to properly dissect said
right.
animal,
'Cause I'm gonna call PETA on you,
right?
or
I
I
won't do
might give
that,
you some
but
sort of advice where it's like, oh, that actually doesn't work for me because I have to feed my animals over the weekend, or
yeah, like I don't know what needs to be done for you to be successful at that,
right.
right? So I think if you know, I'm about to sneeze, it's coming, I feel it. If you know like what you want to accomplish, it's a lot easier than to find somebody who can help you accomplish that, whatever that may be. I'll ask this question,
Right.
Kyla. Like, when you were in grad school, was there a time where you were just like, I really need someone to help me with this piece of what I'm
Yes.
doing?
Absolutely. Like the whole reason I found out I was going to be the first Black woman was because I was looking for a mentor. I was like, I need someone to help me navigate this white space as a Black woman because these people are crazy and there are a ton of microaggressions going on. I need to know how she got through this. So there was no she to talk to. So, but that was definitely a time where I was like, okay, I need that sort of support. I have my friend Corey, who was literally just a year older than me, but had been in the program. And I'm like, all right, these classes, what do I need to take together? What do I need to
Mm,
not take together? And then even within my own like first research lab, like I had a mentor who was maybe, I think Layla was like maybe 4 years my senior in the lab, and she helped me through my first IRB and my first, but I was like, I need to get acclimated to this kind of to research with humans in academia.
yeah,
So yeah, so
yeah.
there's people who I'm like, okay, whatever it is I'm doing right now, who is the next closest person who has done this, and let me talk to them
Mm-hmm.
about that specific aspect.
Yeah. So that's a good point. Like, we are talking about like faculty for the most part as mentors, but your
Yeah,
peers are a wealth of knowledge,
that's
right? And
true.
so your peers, your near peers. So like I consider Kyla a near peer because she's an associate professor
And
and I am an assistant
I feel like
professor.
we
So
mentor
she's
each other.
got more skin in the game. It's true, but that's how it's supposed to be.
Correct.
Um, but yeah, so like having those people, like I have my squad is deep, y'all, and I don't even know where to begin to like articulate what it looks like. But I think it's important to know like who the people are that you need to be successful and to have around you. Um, and there's some tools that can help you do that. So they're mentor
Mm-hmm.
maps. It's literally mentor maps where you can like identify the different categories of what you need. So maybe it's like people who will help you with writing.
Yeah.
You might want to have some mentors that do that. People who help support you emotionally, right? Like that's my family, right? But it's also like some other people who aren't my family because family, y'all know what I'm
Yeah,
talking about.
because they may not even
So,
know what it is that you're doing. So,
right,
yeah,
right. So it's a lot of those people are like near peers who I can tell about my problems, who I know aren't going to tell other people about my problems.
that part.
Uh, I have people for career guidance who are, kind of telling me the steps they took to get to where they are. So with that, I think of like Idalis Villanueva.
Mm-hmm.
She's an associate professor in my department. I'm so glad we hired her. She knows all the things,
Aw,
and she's
she's
like
amazing.
the, yeah, she's the person that I call, and I'm just like, hey, so I want to do this. What do you think? And she gives me that support. Or like Elliot Douglas, who is not in my department, but is someone who's been an NSF program officer, and he understands the educational research space in engineering.
Yeah.
And that's not something that, there are a lot of faculty in my department who actually have that knowledge. So he's that person that I'm like, should I submit this to this
Program with
to
this
this
one.
particular
Yeah.
program? Have you talked to this program
What are
officer
they
type of
really looking
thing?
for? Like, I know the
Right,
call
like
says this, but who do they have in
exactly.
mind for real?
Exactly. Or like, is there something that I should be thinking about that I'm not thinking about?
Right.
He's that guy. So, you need those people who can help kind of give you an easy layup in terms of like moving forward. Because otherwise it would be like, I work on this thing, I submit it, it comes back. I have all these things that I need to fix.
Right. But you
Um,
can't
it's a
strategize.
no. Yeah, like so like really thinking out loud with someone about how to move forward has been really great. And then I have people who are like external, like far away humans that nobody knows that I'm connected to. They're like secret agents almost. And it's just like they're just like, have you thought about doing
Right, and they're
this?
so
You should
removed
go to
from the
this
situation
conference.
where it's like
Right.
they don't have the bias of the university or other things. Like they might present a solution where you're like, yeah, why can't I do that?
Or why haven't they mentioned that,
Right,
right?
right.
So it's sometimes good to have people who have a different context. So like as a grad student, I had friends everywhere because I'm an extrovert and I talk to everybody and I stayed in contact with my friends.
Yeah.
So I'd be like, where y'all going?
What
What are
y'all
y'all doing?
doing?
Can I come?
Right.
Like, and I've always been that person. So just so y'all know, like, that's really how you can like move forward is just talking to people, knowing what you want, telling people what you need, and asking for support when you need it.
And not being a
Because that's,
difficult person to deal with. If
oh
you are
yeah, oh
pleasant,
yeah.
people do not have a hard time giving you their time. Like I have,
It's
yeah, I have some
amazing.
students where I'm just like, oh yeah, my schedule's packed, but I have a meeting with this student and I know it's going to be, a highlight of my day just because that student is either funny or we talk about,
Yeah.
interesting stuff or they're just, I don't know, just any sort of thing. So when you make yourself a pleasant person to be around, it makes it that much easier.
Yeah, and I think every mentorship relationship is different,
Yeah,
right? So you have some people, it's like, let me just send them a text message real quick
right.
and it's done.
The end.
And I have other people, it's like, okay, I'm gonna have to tell them about my whole life.
Right, we got to schedule this thing out for 2 months in the future to
um,
talk.
and so we'll talk about all the things going on in my life, and then the next time I'll ask them about like stuff that I actually need, and then the next time I'll think about like, you know, both of the things,
Right.
right? Like so, it just depends, and those are just longer engagements that happen over a longer period of time.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah.
want to get back to the mentor map that you talked about, and we'll link to that as well. We already got a few links we have to give you, but the National Center for Faculty Development and Diversity, or NCFDD, they created this mentor map and they identified about 9 different categories of mentorship. So, one category is feedback, people who you can give your work in various stages to, like it's an idea versus it's fleshed out versus this is the thing I'm about to turn in, give me some help. Sponsorship, usually that's senior faculty or senior people. These are people who can act as, someone who can literally give you access to things. And so,
And
yes,
money.
and money. Then there's also another category that's called access to opportunities. So sometimes you might hear of like an advocate, a sponsor, like these sorts of things, these sorts of people. So having one off campus and on campus is important in this category. Accountability is also another set of mentors. These
Mm.
can also be peers where many of you are trying to reach the same goals. So you have people who it's like, hey, hold me accountable. I said I was going to write for 2 hours in the morning. Text me at noon and ask me if I wrote for 2 hours, just to have that kind of like, and after a while, you might not always say yes, but you might start to track your own self to be like, okay, what is keeping me from doing this in the morning? So, and you can be that for other people as well. I would just say Shawnee Daily. Shawnee is the worst accountability person because she's going to hold you to everything that you say you're going to do. And it doesn't matter what it is. I'm like,
Actually, she sounds like the
no, she's the
best.
best. I'm saying that as a joke, but if you don't tell Shawnee that you want to do something, because she will make sure that you get it done. So she's the worst best accountability person. The other is professional development. We've talked about that. Emotional support, which is really important. That's
Hmm.
friends, family, and other. Then role models, people who you actually want to be like, intellectual community, and then people who are a safe space for you. So I think we've touched on a
Mm.
lot of these, just even talking
Hmm.
about all those categories, but I wanted to make sure they have that. So this map is like literally a PDF that you can print out and write people's names into. So that'll be available on the episode link for this episode.
I actually think we should link the one. So the University of Michigan's Rackham School of
Oh yes,
Business.
Rackham's the graduate school.
Oh, graduate school.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So they redid
The
the
mentor map.
map for graduate students.
Oh, now did
So that's why
it?
that
Let
makes
me
way
find
more
that.
sense. That's yeah.
Let me
Yeah,
find
so
out.
they yeah, I like it a lot. So and there's some like instructions in there. So that might be something good. I think it's good for undergraduate students too, especially those of you who are in research to use, and it's got cute colors.
Oh, I
So
found it. Let me take a
kind of looks
look.
like the zebra in the back of my background back here.
Hilarious. Oh, they have a whole
Yeah.
graduate student mentoring guide.
Yeah, it's really good.
Okay, we gonna link to that
So
too. Okay. Y'all got homework.
okay. So I think the next question that we should talk about is like, how do you maintain? Wait, no, that's not it. Is that it?
Which one?
No. Oh, it's how important is representation
Yes.
in choosing a mentor? So, I mean, I feel like I kind of glossed over the disciplinary thing. What do you want is really the response I had to that.
Right.
But representation does actually matter. And there's research that shows that if you have this alignment between your identities with your mentors, that it can be even better of outcomes for you to achieve the goals that you're trying to achieve. So, that being said, I want to bring up this space that I'm really excited about that I haven't really talked about yet, I don't think, in my engagements with people. So there is this amazing book by Tori Weiston Serdan called Critical Mentoring, A Practical Guide. And Idalis is the person who pointed me to this. So shout out to Idalis for just being awesome still.
Being a mentor all the time.
Being a mentor giving me a book on mentorship. Look at that. So basically, like, it's the first book that I have read cover to cover in a very long time. I'm the type of person who'll just like read stuff and put it down and forget it exists.
Same.
But I've actually like reread this book, which is nuts to me because I'm just so excited about it. And it really focuses. So Tori really does a lot of like youth action activities. So like she's working with like youth development groups. She has an organization that supports youth mentorship. And so a lot of her content focuses on children and kids. But it's all stuff that can translate into, especially like at the undergraduate and graduate student levels, what we can do to be more effective at mentorship. And so the first thing that's discussed in this book is centering the voice of the individuals being mentored. Right. So we already discussed this. Like, we're no longer ascribing to this hierarchical idea of what mentorship looks like. It's not, I know everything and you know nothing. It's, we're both relational partners in this, and we're trying to help each other achieve our goals. Right.
Right.
But the second thing is about identity and like culturally aware mentoring, intersectionality, like this critical lens that we can place on mentorship and how important that is, because, you know, there's a lot less barrier to entry if you understand who I am.
Yeah.
Without me having to explain who I am. And so if I all the time have to articulate like, well, because I'm Black, this is my experience, or because I'm a woman, this is my experience, like, that gets pretty exhausting.
Right.
It's an explicit way for you to be othered constantly in a relationship with someone. If I don't have to say that stuff, it saves me a lot of hassle.
We can get to the point a whole lot quicker.
Right, like, I just get it. Kyla tells me somebody touched her hair.
She
I
gets it.
understand. You don't have to explain it to me, right? So yeah, it's definitely something that does matter. But that being said, it's kind of unrealistic to expect that you will find individuals who, align perfectly with all of your identities. Because we are very multifaceted human beings. And, I do think that it would be ideal for me to have like a mentor, maybe an aspirational mentor who's a Black woman.
Yeah.
Um, but right now, like my mentors are a Black man, a white woman, a Latina woman. Like I think that that's all great and wonderful, and that I have like those like aspirational mentors in my life. Do I have peers who like are like me? 100% yes. But for the most part, like I'm not gonna find that, and I've had to like come to terms with that because it's really hard. Because just because there is another Black female in the room, that does not mean
Yep. All
that's
skin
not
folk
me.
and kinfolk is what I was to call it.
Yeah, yeah. And the other piece of that is like really charting out like what you need to be successful is also a lot easier when you have someone who's looks like you, who's been through what you've been through, because you can trust it, right? Like
Yeah.
they made it. It's like I can see myself being that person. So I think those are good things.
Yeah.
Um,
I have a story in the
th-
reverse for this one. So, what happens when you have someone who may not have the same life experiences as you or have, the same demographic? So, your advisor is not always your mentor, but in my case, in grad school, mine was, because I
mm-hmm.
initially went to him for advice on how to navigate the program. So that started off, the whole relationship. And like, I just really like how he does work, like just in general. So, there'd be sessions where, I'm trying to figure out, okay, I need to write clearly like him. I need to do this, X, Y, and Z. There came a time when I was finishing up my dissertation and or finishing up my proposal, and I passed flying colors. It was great. And then he was like, well, the graduate committee feels as though, you're in too many extracurricular activities and that you're not serious about your scholastics. And so these extracurriculars were the very thing that was keeping me in school, because these are the people that was talking me off the ledge. Like, you don't tell a Black person, hey, cut off your Black community because
Oh
basically
my
you're
gosh, nope.
struggling. So cut off your family and just stay over here in the struggle house. So this is a point where like these white men could not tell me how to be Black. Like, they can't tell me the type of community that I need because they've never been in a situation where they're the only person who
Mm-hmm.
looks like them and they face the same struggle. So I'm like, respectfully, no. Like, I told them that I quit, but I definitely did not. So because I was like the vice president maybe of like two organizations at the same time. There's overlapping people. They whatever. You rent a room. It's not that, it's not that intense. Rent a room, rent some
It's not
food.
that
It's not
deep,
that deep.
right?
Like,
Yeah.
it's not taking a bunch of time out of my day. And I'm like, okay, so for them, this mentor is telling me to do something that's against everything that I need as a Black person. Like, I would never tell anyone of color or anyone from a marginalized group to cut off their community because they're not going to be seen as a scholar. So you telling me scholar is white and male and don't need nobody? So that's, yeah, so that's just another case. And he actually came up to me recently when I went back to, do my whole Kyla tour. And he was like, I'm so glad that you politely declined my advice. Because I told him, I was like, I told you I quit. I didn't. What you going to do? Fire me? Take back my PhD? But, I was like, this is one of the reasons because I need this community.
Yeah. No, that's real. I think sometimes people are really well-meaning in the advice that they give, and this is why I have a committee of people and not an individual that I seek that guidance from, because like, let's run this through some people who are from our backgrounds. They're gonna absolutely be like, he didn't know what he's talking about, right?
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly.
right. So sometimes that is beneficial to have. It is a luxury to have, though, right? Like, not everybody has that.
Yeah.
So I take people's advice in stride. Like, nobody knows everything.
Right.
And if they pretend that they
They
do,
don't know
they're
nothing.
probably not somebody you want to be your mentor,
Right.
okay? Like, just based on
Yeah.
experience, okay? I don't care what they tell you. Like, my advisor told me, like, look at my wall. I've received awards for being a mentor. And I'm like, congratulations. This is not 1991
Ooh.
anymore. So,
Yeah.
like, don't let people show you who they are
Exactly.
and
Period.
go from there. Go from there, cuz they will tell you. They will absolutely tell you like, "Oh, okay.
Yeah, they'll tell you what's
Cool.
important to
Cool, cool."
them, and then they might have their own regrets. Like I know someone who is definitely a workaholic, but everyone, is like, oh, this person is so great. They researched, they this, they that. Their kids, got old enough to go to college, and I remember them saying they regret not being there while their kids were growing up. So, that's why we try to look at who has a life that looks like something you actually want to have, because yeah,
Yeah.
that's why it's like it's so people can only give you advice from their own context, because everybody, and I think,
Right.
is making the best decisions that they know at the time. But you can always look back and
Mhm.
say, hey, I shouldn't have done that. It doesn't mean they're giving you bad advice, they're just giving you what they thought was the best at that point in time. So
It means they're human,
exactly, they are
right?
humans
And
humaning.
we all make poor choices. It's just it's just life.
Yeah.
It's what you learn from them, those bad choices, and like how you move forward that really matters. And my thought process is like, I don't care. I really don't care to be like renowned or whatever, right? Like, I want to do good work, and I don't want to, hurt anybody in the process
Do
of
no
doing my
evil.
work. Right? Like, do no harm.
Yeah.
And I think in the academy, because of how it's structured, because it wasn't designed for us, because of so many things, like, it's just not wired that way. It's not wired in a way to like promote having a family and a life and friendships and real relationships with people. And if you follow the structure they want you to follow, you would have none of the things,
Right.
because you'd be married to your work.
Exactly.
And that's just not how our society is going to move forward. It's just not.
Yeah.
So there has to be a shift in like focusing on like your well-being and what you need to be successful. And I think, you know, Kyla does an excellent job
Of what?
at modeling that.
Oh
Like,
yes.
add some Kyla time onto this work time. Take time to like, do random things. Like every Halloween, her friends have like ridiculous costume parties, and it's
Oh
like people from all
yes.
over the place come together for their group costume situation.
Oh
She has
yes.
house parties and stuff. Like, she's on a different level of like people can be in her house because she doesn't have a toddler. And so like, I see that and I'm like, I could just go over there, like I don't have to do the things, but I could just be
But
there,
you arranged the
and
things. You arranged our
I
retreat.
do.
Yeah.
I like planning things, and like, I'm my next adventure is to plan our ski trip because
Oh
someone
yeah.
else in my household is not going to do it.
Okay.
So, even though he volunteered himself to do it, which really was volunteering me.
Wow.
Anyways, yeah, so finding a balance of like stuff that you enjoy doing. Like, I was presented this opportunity to study abroad. Like, and by study abroad I mean like lead a study abroad. And
Man.
I'm like, my filter now is, how does this help with tenure and promotion?
Yep.
Because my mentor got me on that journey
Yeah.
when I was a postdoc. So everything runs through that filter.
Yep.
And so the answer is, it doesn't.
It's just really cool. Great.
But then the next question is it something I want to do? Do you want to do it? And the answer is, I mean, I would love to live in Brazil for a couple of weeks. That'd be
Just
fire,
saying.
right? If someone else pay for it, yeah, of course.
And also, something
And
you
so,
want to do helps with your mental
yeah.
health. Like sometimes you have to
Mm.
have these passion projects to make you want to do the other stuff that sometimes can suck the life out of you.
Well, then I was like, well, maybe it can help with tenure and promotion. Let's design a study and get a paper out of it.
Exactly.
And then I talked about it with the person who was asking me to do it, and they were like, yeah, I was actually thinking about doing that. And I'm like, great.
Lovely.
And
Let's
so,
write about
you
it.
know, if I didn't have that filter that my mentor gave me, I wouldn't have even thought to do that opportunity because it would have just been something that was superfluous, even though it would have been fun. And now I get to do both. I get to have fun and I get to have something that benefits my career.
Yeah.
And it's a win-win win.
And that's what
So,
mentors can help you with, helping you to achieve your
mm-hmm,
goals, but also, let it count for you professionally. And that is only the advice that someone more senior in the field can give you. Because you can take on lots of stuff and be like, I should have collected data on that. Or,
right,
or I could have, hindsight is 2020, but sometimes folks can see
right.
stuff just as it comes and put two and two together
Mm-hmm,
for you where you didn't already.
mm-hmm,
All right. So we had a lot of other sort of questions to speak to, but I think we talked about a lot of these in our previous discussions, which is perfectly
mm-hmm.
fine. Um, so let's do one more. What do you think?
Okay,
Okay.
that's fine.
So I think we've already talked about what what do you do or how do you know when a mentoring relationship isn't working for you? But have you ever had to turn down a mentorship relationship, either as the we'll give both sides, so either as a mentee or as the mentor, and what did you do?
I actually told a student this summer that she shouldn't work with me anymore.
Oh, okay.
And not because I she's amazing. She's wonderful. And she does great work, but what she wants to do career-wise has nothing to do with what I do.
Yeah.
And so instead, I made an introduction to one of my colleagues in civil engineering, and I'm like, Jayla's amazing. Girl, can she work with you? And yeah, so I turned that relationship down. I was like, no, you can't be here anymore.
No, and that makes all the sense in the world. Like I have a lot of undergrad students who, especially when I was teaching the intro class, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, please mentor me." So I made them all in a group, and I was like, "This is mentor day." And then, this is. I'm not going to talk to all of you individually, but we can do lunch once a month, and y'all can ask me whatever you want to ask me. So that was a way I sort of said no to individual mentoring, but y'all can sit with me while I eat my lunch and ask me some questions. So, like, that was
Mm-hmm.
sort of a strategic sort of thing. And, it was really good because once it was time to write my tenure letters, they've all gone off and they're wonderful companies. And they were able to say, like, Dr. McMullen helped me. She taught me how to code,
Oh.
literally. So, that was really cool. But when people now, like, I'm definitely very aware of my capacity. So if I think I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to be terrible, I try to frame it in that way to the person and just say, hey, like you said, Jeremy, I'm not the right person for this, or I am the right person. I just don't have the time right now. I might tell them one of my
Mm-hmm.
grad students can mentor them for their specific role because that also helps them learn how to be a mentor. But usually I don't say no, I'll do no, but here is another resource, another person, another tree to knock on or door to knock on so that they can have some
Yeah.
sort of advice or make an introduction
Mm-hmm.
to someone. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I can't think. I mean, the other way around, I tried to say no to one. We see how that turned out.
oh man.
Um,
Trying to think if well, I know one case of yours, but I'm not going to bring that up because it's messy.
yeah, we shouldn't talk about
And when I started the question, I was like, ooh, wait.
that. No.
No, we're not going to talk about that. But I'm trying to think about
Oh
who
gosh.
has ever wanted to be a mentor and or maybe I just stopped listening to them because I'm really good at just being like, I'm not going to do what you said, but I'm going to just shake my head for the time being and continue on my
Right.
path.
Yeah. You know, I mean, I've I've had other people who've tried to mentor me. I have people who think they mentor me. And I just let people believe that on some levels. But, you know, you're the only person who gets to decide who your mentors are. And, you know, and you get to be a part of defining what that looks like.
Yeah.
And if you aren't, I don't think that it's not I mean, it can still be beneficial, but it's probably gonna feel a little forced,
Yeah. And
right?
trust your
So,
gut in a lot of these, situations as well. Like if something just does not sit right with you, it's for a reason.
right. All of that. So yeah, I feel like we did a good job talking about mentorship,
I think so too.
about mentors and mentees. We talked about a lot of evidence-based approaches to mentorship.
That is very true. Did you want to talk any more
If you
about
have
the critical mentoring?
I was just gonna say, if y'all have questions,
Oh,
you're
yeah.
feel free to like reach out to me. You can obviously talk to Kyla too, because she's mentored
No,
people
Jeremy is the
in research
mentorship
more than me.
expert. So definitely
Yeah.
reach out. Um, yeah, I forgot what I was going to say just that fast. Oh, yeah, all of the resources that we talked about will be linked in the episode. Oh, yeah, I was going to say they don't ever reach out to us. So send us some messages. We're
Yeah.
nice.
What's that
I
about?
don't know. I don't know. So you can get
It's
in our
okay.
DMs on Instagram, Modern Figures Podcast. You can send us a message on Twitter, ModFigs Pod, Facebook. We have a whole page that you can write on. So just so we don't feel like we're just talking
Period.
into the bits, because we know y'all listening. We get the download counts, but
It's okay. It's
it's all
okay.
right.
That'll be all right.
Maybe they're introverts. Maybe we're just expecting too
Oh my
much.
goodness. Yeah, maybe. We'll see. Okay.
Bye.